Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jerry Morris, and we're here today to present a teaching entitled the Enoch Calendar. Keep in mind when we talk about the Enoch Calendar that we're talking about a solar calendar and not a moon calendar, not a calendar based on phases of the moon. We first got started looking into some ancient documents on this calendar, and we're here, ladies and gentlemen, to present to you the evidence that we have found. We don't claim to be right, to be completely right, but we do ask you, ladies and gentlemen, to check this out. We're here to present the evidence. You're the jury, you decide. And approximately, I've been in the Hebraic roots movement for approximately 5 years now. And God put it on my heart about a year ago to visit some of the Hebraic roots congregations in our area. And I found groups that we visited were all seemed to be on a different type of calendar, and all based on phases of the moon. We had crescent moons, this crescent moon, dark moon, all based on phases of the moon. And my partner here in the ministry brought me a stack of books about, I guess it's about 6 months ago now. And he gave me this stack of books, and he said, "Here, Jerry," he said, "read these, and these are books on the calendar, about the calendar." And I thought, oh no, not another book on the calendar. I've read so many books in the last 5 years on the calendar. Surely not another book. And it wasn't another book, it was a lot of books. He brought me the book of Enoch, he brought me the book of Jubilees, he brought me the Dead Sea Scrolls. And the Dead Sea Scrolls documents alone of the translation that I read was about a 700-page book. And to tell you the truth, I had never heard, up until 2 years ago, I'd never heard of the book of Enoch. I'd never heard of the book of Jubilees. I'd heard of the Dead Sea Scrolls, but I'd only read a small portion of the documents. And of course, the first thing I did is I read the book of Enoch twice, I read the book of Jubilees twice, I read the book of the Dead Sea Scrolls twice. And then I began to study them. And of course, when my partner brought the books, he said, "Jerry, it talks about a 364-day solar calendar." And you know, in my spirit, I'd always thought, God's calendar is going to be divisible by 7. And the first thing I did was I took the 364 days and I divided it by 7. And sure enough, it divided exactly by 7, 52 weeks in a year. And I never thought about this, but I thought, well, what about the 354-day moon calendar that we've been used to for so many years? What's it divisible by? And I found that it was divisible by 6. And I thought, you know, this ought to tell us something right here. 6 is the number of man. When God does everything in increments of 7. We have 7 days in a week. We have 7 festivals. We have 7 Sabbaths to count down the Omar Count to Shavuot. We have 7 Smitty years to the Jubilee. Why would God devise a calendar divisible by 6 if everything He's doing is based on 7s? So I did a little more research on Enoch, and we found that Enoch, we see in the scriptures that Enoch is the 7th from Adam. Enoch goes back a long way. And Enoch walked perfectly with God. Maybe we ought to listen to Enoch. The scripture says, I believe it's in Isaiah, it says, return to the ancient days when the times were good. Enoch was given the luminaries in Enoch chapter 72, and he came back and he taught it to his son Methuselah. Methuselah taught it to Noah. Noah took the documents on the ark, gave it to his son Shem, who transferred it to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, on to Moses, and then Moses to Joshua, and then to David in the days of the tabernacle, and then to Solomon in the early temple era. We're going back to the ancient days, back to the days of the first temple and the Zadok priesthood. In 1 Chronicles 24, we have a list of these Zadok priests. And if we'll read Ezekiel 44, we'll see that these Zadok priests are the only ones who are going to minister to Yeshua in the millennium, in the millennial reign. What I found is that the book of Enoch mentions this 364-day year. Jubilees mentions it several times. And in the Dead Sea Scrolls documents, it's all over the place. It's talked about in the songs of the Sabbath sacrifice. It's in the priestly order. It's in the synchronized calendar. I mean, it's all over the documents of the Dead Sea Scrolls. And these Dead Sea Scrolls are the oldest biblical documents that we have today. And one thing that I noticed when I read the Dead Sea Scrolls documents that alluded to this calendar, not one time did I find a mention of a new moon. You know, those of you who know Hebrew know that the difference between new month and new moon is merely vowel points. But in the ancient days there weren't vowel points. And I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, what makes sense? The moon is no longer new. It was new in the fourth day of creation, when God created the sun, moon, and the stars on the fourth day of creation. 5,000 years from now, or 6,000 years, about the time we are today, the moon is no longer new. But we have a new month. Every month we have a new month. The new month of the first month, the new month of the second month, the new month of the third month, and so on to the 12th month. I found no indication of these calendars of the 13th month. It doesn't say anything about a 13th month. 12 months in a year. We're going to do a DVD series, teaching series, later on this priestly order, of this Zadok priestly order, of how it lines up, and how it lines up perfectly with this 364-day calendar. It will not line up on a 354-day calendar. It is impossible. I've tried it. It won't work. Now we need to determine which month and which day our calendar begins. And with this we need to go to Genesis chapter 1. And God, Yahweh, said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth." And it was so. And Yahweh made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And Yahweh set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And Yahweh saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day. In Jubilees chapter 2 we read, "These four great works Yahweh created on the third day. And on the fourth day he created the sun and the moon and the stars, and set them in the firmament of the heaven, to give light upon all the earth, and to rule over the day and the night, and divide the light from the darkness. And Yahweh appointed the sun to be a great sign on the earth, for days, and for Sabbaths, and for months, and for feasts, and for years, and for Sabbaths of years, and for jubilees, and for all seasons of the years." In Jubilees chapter 6 we read, "And all the children of Israel will forget, and will not find the path of the years, and will forget the new months, and seasons, and Sabbaths, and they will go wrong as to all the order of the years. For I know, and from henceforth will I declare it unto thee, and it is not of my own devising, for the book lies written before me, and on the heavenly tablets the division of days is ordained, lest they forget the feast of the covenant, and walk according to the feast of the Gentiles, after their error and after their ignorance. For there will be those who will assuredly make observations of the moon, how it disturbs the seasons, and comes in from year to year 10 days too soon. For this reason the years will come upon them, when they will disturb the order, and make an abominable day the day of testimony, and an unclean day a feast day, and they will confound all the days, the holy with the unclean, and the unclean day with the holy. For they will go wrong as to the months, and Sabbaths, and feasts, and jubilees. For this reason I command and testify to thee, that thou mayest testify to them. For after thy death thy children will disturb them, so that they will not make the year 364 days only. And for this reason they will go wrong as to the new months, seasons, Sabbaths, festivals, and they will eat all kinds of blood with all kinds of flesh." You can see here, ladies and gentlemen, that they will make observations of the moon, and it will come in and disturb the seasons, and come in 10 days too soon, and not make them exactly 364 days only. What's the difference between the Enoch calendar, a 364-day calendar, and our moon calendar today is exactly 354 days. Disturbs the seasons and comes in from year to year 10 days too soon. Now if we'll look at the calendar, we'll see that our first month is the month of Aviv. That's when the Israelites left Egypt, on this day, on the 15th day of the first month. We'll see that God created the sun and the moon and the stars, and created the greater sign for observations as to festivals and days and weeks and years. This is this day right here. He created it on the fourth day. If we'll count from creation, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the fourth day is Wednesday. If we count 3 days from there, we have the Sabbath. That way, the Israelites never lost track of the Sabbath day. And our first Moedim, of course, are the Sabbath days, and we'll see our Sabbaths are going to fall on these days. We'll see this in the Psalms of the Sabbath sacrifice, exactly what day these Sabbaths fall on. We'll find with our calendar that Passover is always on the 14th day. Unleavened bread is on the 15th day. The wave sheaf of the barley is on the 26th day. Shavuot is on the 15th day. Yom Teruah is on the first day, Yom Kippur on the 10th day, and Sukkot on the 15th day. Passover will always fall on Tuesday. Unleavened bread, first day of unleavened bread, will always fall on Wednesday. Waving the barley sheaf will always fall on Sunday. Feast of Weeks will always fall on Sunday. Yom Teruah will always fall on Wednesday. Yom Kippur will always fall on Friday. Sukkot, the first day of Sukkot, will always fall on Wednesday. If you make these observations, ladies and gentlemen, on the moon calendar, your feast dates are going to be all over the place. These Moedim are fixed times and seasons. They're fixed. That means they're going to fall on the same day every year on your calendar. Yeshua was hung on the tree on Passover Tuesday, and he was placed in the grave here on the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And John said that that day was a high Sabbath. So he was placed in the grave here, and then we count 3 days and 3 nights, 1, 2, 3, and he was raised here on the Sabbath that evening. If you look into the gospel accounts, the translators translated the word Sabbaton in the Greek to the word week. The word day is italicized and added by the translators. So it should read, after the Sabbath, which would have been the high Sabbath of unleavened bread, they came to the grave early on the Sabbaton, as the sun began to rise. If you have a Strong's Concordance, the word Sabbath and week in Strong's is Strong's number 4521. Also, if you have a Greek interlinear Bible, you will see the word Sabbaton is translated week. We have a passage in the book of Jeremiah that says, beware of the lying pen of the scribes. Also, if you'll think about it, in the gospel accounts, who did Yeshua rebuke? He rebuked the scribes and the Pharisees. And we know why he rebuked the Pharisees, because they misinterpreted the Torah. And we can see now, I believe, why he rebuked the scribes. The scribes are the ones that were writing this down. And we see this all over in our translations, that if we don't check this out and check what the translators have done to us, they had to make our Messiah look like he was raised on Sunday. And it's quite evident from Scripture, if we go back to the original, that he wasn't resurrected on Sunday, he was resurrected on Sabbath. One thing that confused me when I first started looking at this calendar was the day of the Omar Count. I was always taught that the Omar Count began at the Saturday Sabbath of unleavened bread. Of course, we have some that count it the day after unleavened bread. And when I counted the Omar Count, I didn't come to the exact same day as they did in the Book of Jubilees and the Dead Sea Scrolls documents. I was a week ahead. I was up here on the 8th. But then I looked back and started and studied and reread the account in Leviticus 23, and it doesn't really tell us in Leviticus 23 exactly when this Omar Count begins. We've assumed all of this time that it began between the Sabbaths of unleavened bread. And I thought, well, maybe I've counted this wrong, or there's something wrong in the Book of Jubilees and the Dead Sea Scrolls. When I looked at it again, I found that in Exodus 19, I read the account of when the children of Israel left Egypt. And it says in Exodus 19:1, in the 3rd month, when the children of Israel were gone forth out of the land of Egypt, the same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai. And Moses went up to Yahweh, and Yahweh called unto him out of the mountain, saying, Thus shalt thou say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel. And Moses came and called for the elders of the people, and laid before their faces all these words which Yahweh commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, All that Yahweh hath spoken we will do. And Moses returned the words of the people unto Yahweh. Now we can see that Israel left on this day in the first month. And it says the same day in the third month they came to Mount Sinai. So that's the 15th day of the third month. So once I started the Omar count from this 26th day to this day, it came out to exactly 50. And when I counted this day to this day, it was 60, exactly 60 days from the day that they left. So both accounts gave me an account of the 15th day of the third month as the Feast of Weeks. And if we look at the Psalms of the Sacrifice in the Dead Sea Scrolls documents, it will give us the days that the Sabbaths fall on in each one of these quarters. In the first quarter, it says that the Sabbaths will fall on the 4th, the 11th, the 18th, and the 25th. In the second month, they'll fall on the 2nd, the 9th, the 16th, the 23rd, the 30th, and then in the third month, it'll fall on the 7th, the 14th, the 21st, and the 28th. And then it rotates back through the second quarter, the third quarter, and the fourth quarter. Now we need to determine which Wednesday this Enoch calendar begins on. And if you'll look in the Dead Sea Scrolls under synchronized calendars, you will find that they mention moon phases, and keep in mind that the moon phases are only a secondary indicator as to when the month starts. And it speaks of a full moon, not a new moon. So if we'll go to the first day of the week of the month, which is on a Wednesday, we'll find a full moon on this day. And then if we go to the 30th day of this month, we'll find another full moon. Now in order to determine this, we've got a computer program called Moon Phases that we can determine what the phases of the moon are and also project it in the years into the future. So if we'll go to 2013, what we had to do is we had to project our Enoch calendar into a Greco-Roman calendar, because when we looked at moon phases, it doesn't give you moon phases based on the Enoch calendar, it gives you moon phases based on the Gregorian calendar. So we found, and another thing that it mentions in the synchronized calendars, that you will find the 6-year increments where every 3 years that this will line up with the full moon on the Wednesday beginning the month and then at the end of the month. We found this in 2013, 2016, and 2019. These periods lined up with full moons on Wednesday beginning the month. So in 2013, our first day, as you'll see, is Wednesday, is the 27th day of March. There was a full moon on the 27th day of March. The 30th day of the first month is on the 25th day of April. And there was a full moon on the 25th day of April. Now if we go to 2016, we'll find that our first day begins on, here again, Wednesday, on the 23rd day of March. There's a full moon on the 23rd day of March, which is the first day, and there's a full moon on the 21st day of April. Now if we go to 2019, our first day begins with a full moon on the 20th day of March, here again on a Wednesday, full moon, and then we have another full moon on the 19th day of April. Once you set your clock or set your calendar, it'll remain the same all through. It'll remain the same for 10 years, 20 years, 100 years, Once you set it, all you do is count back around 364 days. You'll count 364 days back to Tuesday, and you'll start the count again Wednesday of the first day. Count it again. You can count backwards, you can count forwards, as long as you've got 364 days in a year. While we've got the 2019 calendar up here, one thing that I noticed that was really phenomenal was that if you begin, well, let's take January the 1st. If you start your count on January the 1st, and this year it happened to be on Tuesday, it happens to be on Tuesday, if you'll count 364 days through this Gregorian calendar, you will come all the way back to this Monday. And that would be exactly 364 days. Start your count again, count 1. Even on the Gregorian calendar, you'll find 364 days. What we're doing, ladies and gentlemen, is that we're not returning to the point of beginning. If we looked at a 2020 calendar, most probably the next year would start with a Wednesday. So we passed this point of beginning. So you've got to come back to the point of beginning. It's just like a survey on a piece of property. A piece of property with a survey begins with a point of beginning, and it ends with a point of beginning. The problem with our calendars is that it begins with a point of beginning and it exceeds the point of beginning. So it doesn't come back to the point of beginning. That, ladies and gentlemen, concludes our study. We've presented the evidence. You be the jury, you decide. Shalom.